Hi, and welcome. I want to thank you for taking a few moments to learn a little bit more about the Applied Behavior Analysis program here at Truman State University. At Truman, we have two pathways for training in behavior analysis. The first pathway is obtaining and training for a full master's degree with a focus in disability studies and applied behavior analysis. And the second is a graduate certificate in applied behavior analysis. And that would be best fit for individuals that already have a graduate degree in a related discipline. So let's first talk about the master's degree. So the master's degree, again, is in disability studies with a focus or emphasis in applied behavior analysis. And the disability studies aspect of the degree makes it a unique training opportunity in that students are being presented and build competency surrounding the social, cultural, and political aspects of disability. So we find this really creates a unique situation for students to promote the most person centered form of treatment for the clients that they serve that might have a disability. The disability studies aspect of the program is targeted through two core courses. The remaining lecture courses are going to cover ABA or behavior analysis specific content, and those content are tied to the requirements for individuals that want to sit for certification. The master's degree also includes internship that happens during the last year, which I'll discuss a little bit more in the subsequent slide. And it also includes optional practicum if students want to start accruing some of their fieldwork hours before their internship. The graduate certificate is similar in terms of the ABA courses. So both programs go through the same 8 ABA courses. The differences between the two is that the graduate certificate doesn't include the two additional courses that have a focus of disability studies, and it doesn't include at this point a required internship or practicum. Again, the practicum could be done if the individual wanted to obtain supervision in conjunction with the university. So most students that are interested in the program generally will look at the Master's in Disability Studies, even if they do have a graduate degree, because the additional credits really are very minimal, just two additional courses and then the internship, which, like I mentioned, we'll talk about a little bit more on a future slide. The ABA courses, the coursework is verified by ABAI. So we are a verified course sequence, which means that the courses all put together meet the requirements for students to be eligible to sit for the certification exam, specifically the education requirements, because there are some other requirements like field experience and whatnot. We do follow a cohort model, and we have new cohorts entering every fall. And following that model and the schedule, students could be done with the program in about 2 years. There is actually opportunity to finish a little bit earlier, depending on if a student wanted to take two classes during that first summer versus just one. But a student could be finished in a little less than 2 years, but the traditional schedule would reach out 2 full years. Each course is 8 weeks long. So in a semester, you would take two courses. You would take one 8 week course the first half, and then one 8 week course the second half. I like to describe the courses as mostly asynchronous, or a majority of asynchronous, in that most of the activities for each course are completed independently. So you navigate lectures and course content independently, but each course also has 3 live sessions. So the live sessions are spaced apart during that 8 weeks. So those live sessions really act as good and thorough discussions. So each ABA course will have a live session during week 3, week 6, and then week 8. And those checkpoints allow us to have, again, a really thorough discussion on the topics that have been covered so far. Our current students really appreciate this model because it offers some degree of flexibility, not requiring a weekly meeting, but then also having a mechanism in which you could ask instructors question about particular concepts, and then build those relationship with individuals in your cohort and the instructor. So I think it really promotes and allows different learning styles and capacity because you could do a majority of your learning through the asynchronous component, and you can really take advantage of the live sessions by participating in discussion, going through examples for particular concepts, so on and so forth. The live meetings are also, as I mentioned, a heavy component in how we promote peer interactions. And there's a few other things that we do as well. We use interteaching, which is an evidence-based strategy, essentially pairing with another student and going over content, and then other more peer-centered activities like video or audio discussions. So the courses are designed in a way to make sure or give a lot of opportunity for students to connect with their peers. So while we are an online program and we might have students from all over the country, we want to make sure that nobody feels like they're on an island and that they can reach out to their instructor. They can reach out to individuals in their cohort and ask questions and feel like they have that more traditional relationship that somebody might have going to an on-ground campus. The courses are designed to supplement and line up with a universal learning design in that the content is designed and presented in a way that really gives opportunity for learners to navigate it in any way that really makes sense for them. So we have pre-recorded lectures that are integrated into an interactive lecture tool. We try to limit the duration of videos to no more than 15 minutes. So if someone maybe has difficulty attending for more than 15 minutes, you watch that video, you can come back, and you're not just starting in the middle of a media. Things are broken down in a way that's pretty manageable. But if you did like to manage and navigate things for an hour or two, you can also do that and just continue to move through those media. Our learning modules use a lot of other components, and we'll go through an example on the next slide. And the courses are designed for very easy navigation. So each course, as I mentioned, is only 8 weeks long. So you really don't have the time to learn a different formatting and where things are located for each course. So we've made things very easy to locate, instructions pretty explicit in the course page, navigation videos and tutorials, so students can just start the next class and jump straight into content versus having to learn where things are for a particular class.
As I mentioned previously, a majority of the course content is completed asynchronously, and a great deal of that is lectures. Our courses move away from extremely long lectures that might require a student to sit in front of a computer for an hour plus. We feel that that might not be the most effective way to learn, and there are a lot of variables, especially when learning at home, that could, or learning online rather, that could make it difficult to attend to a lecture for that long. In addition to preference, some students might be able to allocate several hours to focus on lecture content, whereas some students might be able to only allocate chunks of time across the week where we're attached to the amount of content hours we need to because of being verified by ABAI and making you eligible to sit for the exam. We could present the content in ways that allows learners to really approach it in a way that makes sense for them. So one of the biggest ways we do that is, as I mentioned, not having super long lectures, but chunking those out. So while we might have 2 or 3 hours of lectures in a given week, it isn't 2 or 3 straight hours, and there's a lot of opportunity to jump in and out, in and out, in and out as your schedule allows, as you feel comfortable to grasp a particular concept. So this first example you see here is from one of the first courses. It talks about the 7 dimensions of ABA. And in this first video is 15 minutes. And that's really our cap. We don't have any videos or any lectures that go beyond 15 minutes. We feel from our student feedback and from the literature that anything beyond that risk individuals not grasping context and content and might be leaving out any of the very important concepts that really connect to the lesson objectives. So we limit the duration of videos essentially between 10 and 15 minutes, but potentially shorter depending on what the topic is, if it could be easily broken down. but that allows students to jump in and out as needed. So if I only had maybe 15 minutes to watch this video, I could just watch this video. I can exit the lecture, and then when I re-enter, I'm going to be left right where I finished. So I don't need to rewatch. I could just continue from where I was. All the lectures, students have access to PowerPoints as well as the captions, so essentially a script. So if students have other learning strategies that they think are helpful, like note taking on a PowerPoint or following a script, those are things that are made available through all the courses. The interactive lectures breaks apart and gives other opportunities to pull away some of that important content that was covered in the lecture, essentially to remind and refresh. And again, as we present other videos, you can see the duration of time is quite low, 12 minutes to complete this media. And at any point, as I mentioned, students can exit, attend to something, personal matter, go to work, come back. Someone might be able to do 20, 30 minutes of a lecture during their lunch break, and then return later the day or later in the week to complete the other components of the lecture. So it makes it not only very compatible with a schedule, so maybe someone's work schedule if they're working full time, but also with their learning style. If I just know that after 30 minutes, it's going to be very difficult for me to require anything else. We also try to incorporate other multimedia tools, again, drawing focus to like course objectives or lesson objectives, pulling from other really strong media like YouTube videos that cover topics from reputable ABA sources. And then most lessons end with some degree of active responding where there's a question and answers. And these are not graded, they're just to gauge the student's understanding of concepts, and they provide feedback. So if a student answered incorrectly, it would tell them why the answer is incorrect and why the correct answer is correct, just to give them more practice with the content.
As I mentioned, the master's program includes an internship component. Internship occurs generally during the student's second year and takes place during that fall and spring. Internship lasts each section as 16 weeks, so a student would be enrolled in internship during all of fall and then all of spring. Internship is intended to help the student occur supervised fieldwork, which is a requirement to sit for the certification exam, but also have the student exit the program with some sort of product that demonstrates their competency in behavior analysis. So this is something similar to a thesis in which the student is potentially working on an applied research project, an applied clinical project, potentially a comprehensive literature review. The internship process is really a time for the student to work with their faculty and develop a plan to come up with a product that's really going to connect with their interests and demonstrate their competency in behavior analysis. The minimum fieldwork hour requirement for each internship is 240 hours per semester. So it would be 240 hours for fall and 240 hours for spring. That's the minimum. We generally would encourage students to reach for the maximum that is allowable in terms of supervised fieldwork. That information is really controlled, or really the requirements for that are controlled by the Behavior Analyst Certification Board. But currently, the maximum is 130 hours per month. So if a student had the opportunity to occur 130 hours per month, we would come up with a plan to provide that supervision so students are able to, again, maximize the supervised fieldwork they have so they're more prepared to take the exam. Internship can be done through a paid position. So many students very often will conduct internship at their place of employment if they're working at, for example, an ABA clinic, a day program, community program, a school setting in which they have access to a BCBA. There's also arrangements in which if you do work in a relevant setting but maybe don't have access to a BCBA, that the university can provide that supervision as well. So we're very flexible in terms of what that internship experience looks like. Again, we're invested in building capacity for BCBAs all over the country. So we are invested in making an internship experience that will support you and lead to your eventually taking the exam and hopefully becoming certified. Internship does have a scheduled group and one-on-one supervision meetings. So this is where we are a little bit more synchronous because the group supervision and those one-on-one supervisions need to happen live. So it isn't like some of the asynchronous content that you could just review and engage in. So there will be scheduled group and one-on-one supervision meetings. And again, we try to make those in line with what your schedule likely works with. So if you're working traditional office hours and you're available maybe after 4 or 5, we'll do our best to make sure that your supervision is happening when you can attend. And like I mentioned, one of the biggest purposes of internship is to have students exit with a product that demonstrates their competency in behavior analysis. So students will have essentially 2 full semesters to work on that, and they might even be able to start working on it earlier if they wanted to do something like a research project that needs to go through IRB approval. So you'd work with your faculty and develop that project to be done by the end of spring, so you could finish the internship process. And then this final slide just really goes through how to become a BCBA and how our programs here at Truman could help with that. So again, how to become a BCBA and applying for certification are requirements that are set by the Behavior Analyst Certification Board. But some of the current components that are required is that you have a graduate degree, ABA coursework, and then supervised field work. So those 3 components are included in the MA program and the master's program here at Truman. So the master's degree in disability studies, that includes the required ABA coursework, which again, we are a verified course sequence, and it also includes supervised field work. Students have the opportunity to complete all 2,000 hours of field work. They can do a big chunk during internship, and they can also, if they're in a relevant setting, can start that practicum experience before internship and accrue those hours. Currently, the requirement is 2,000 fieldwork hours, a little bit less if we 1,500 if you do concentrated. Again, it could be in a paid position, and as I mentioned previously, that could be at your current employer. We could touch into some of our resources and see if we can find you a position as well. And you can start accruing those supervised fieldwork hours the first day of that first ABA course. And then after that, it's really submitting your information, your application to the BACB, taking the exam, passing it, and then obtaining your certification. And again, I want to thank you for taking the time to learn a little bit more about the Applied Behavior Analysis program that we have here at Truman State University. If you have any questions about the program, you could connect with either of the contacts here on the screen, and we'd be more than happy to speak with you a little bit more.